Hi, I'm Tim and welcome to part 9 of my Home Assistant series. And in this part 9, what we'll be doing is taking this, which is an Android tablet, and we'll be setting it up as Home Assistant control panel so that you can control Home Assistant from the tablet. So you could either probably mount it on a wall or on a shelf or something using a bracket or a stand and control your smart home via the remote control panel instead of having to log into Home Assistant on your smart devices or computers. Not only that, but what we'll be doing is setting up an automation so that it automatically charges up the tablet when the battery level drops to a certain level, and it will then stop charging when it gets to the higher level. And also, as a final bonus tip, what I'll be doing is showing you how to activate the tablet so that when you walk up to the screen, it automatically turns on, and then when you walk away, it will also turn off. Just some things to consider. I'm using an Android tablet, but you should also be able to use an Apple iPad, for example, and you'll also need a Zigbee smart plug or a Matter over Thread smart plug that you'll need to have already installed so that we can use it to charge up the tablet with. So if you haven't already set up a Zigbee smart plug and you want to know how, then please refer to part 5 or part 6 of my Home Assistant video series. So without further delay, let's get to it and set up this tablet into Home Assistant. So here we are at the computer, and what I've done is logged into Home Assistant. So this is the Home Assistant that we'll be controlling and linking up to our Android tablet as the Home Assistant control panel. So what we first need to do is in Home Assistant, which you don't have to do if you don't want, but what we're going to do is create an additional user so that we can use it for the Smart Home Control Panel. Now this will be a non-admin user, but if you want to allow admin access from your control panel, so your Android tablet, and do administrative tasks in Home Assistant from your control panel, which you can do, then you'll need to make the user an admin user. So to create the user in Home Assistant, what we need to do is go to Settings at the bottom left corner. Then what we'll do is select People. So then with the People screen, what you need to do at the top is click on Users, and this will then bring up the list of users. So you'll see some default ones in there, and that's Home Assistant Content and also Supervisor. So that's administrators, and you'll also see my username, which is Tim, which is the owner. So what we need to do to add the user is click Add User in the bottom right corner. Then in the pop-up window, we'll give it a display name. So in this, we'll call it Tablet, and the username. Once we click in that box, it will automatically populate from the display name. So it will all be in lowercase, as you can see. And then what we'll do is give the user a password and confirm the password. And then what you need to do is, if you want local access, so if you're not accessing Home Assistant remotely, so from another network outside of your house, then you would tick local access only if you want it just to be used inside of your home network, which if you're using a control panel on your wall, then it's more than likely being on your home network. So I would recommend selecting local access only. Then, as I've mentioned, if you want them to be an administrator, so if you want to be able to create automations, set up other users from your smart home Android control panel, then you would need to make that person an administrator. But if you want to just, for example, turn on lights, smart plugs and so on, then you wouldn't need the administrator option. So it's entirely up to you which option you select, whether that's being enabled with an administrator or disabled. So in this case, I'll allow the administrator, and then we'll click on Create. And now you'll see we've got the additional user popped up called Tablet. So now that we've created the additional user, what we need to do is go to our Android tablet, or if you're using an iPad, for example, then open up your iPad, which you can see I've done on the screen now. And what we're going to do is install an application called Fully Kiosk Browser. So all you need to do is go to a usual app store. So in my case, it will be the Google Play Store. Click on the search, and then in the search bar at the top, we'll type in fully kiosk and press enter, and you'll see that we get fully kiosk browser and lockdown. So this is the application that you want. So don't select any other fully kiosk applications. You need to ensure that it's the fully kiosk browser and lockdown. So all you need to do is install that on your tablet, and you can see that it's now installed. So we'll go back to the home screen, select all the applications, and then what we'll do is add it to the home screen. So you'll now see that we've got fully kiosk browser here on the home screen. So what we need to do is click on fully kiosk browser to open it, and then in the start URL, so you'll get the fully kiosk browser screen, quick start settings, and then in the start URL you want to remove all that text that's in there. So just go ahead and delete it all, and then what we're going to do is type in http:// and then // and then if we go back to our Home Assistant web page, you'll see in the address bar at the top, we've got the name of Home Assistant. So in this case, it's http:// HALAB1 and then :8123. So what you need to do is highlight that right up to the end of 8123, which is the Home Assistant port number, and then copy that information. And then what we can do is go back to the tablet and paste in that information. Now you'll see that it's just duplicated as I didn't delete the HTTP, so we've got it duplicated there. So what you should have in the start URL is http:// and then the name of your Home Assistant installation or the IP address, and then a colon, and then 8123, and then that should all be the information you need in the start URL. So once you've entered the start URL and click the go button, and then what you need to do is click the start using fully blue button in the center of the screen. This should then take you to the welcome home and your usual Home Assistant login page where you enter the username and password. So what we need to do is enter the username that we've just created. So if you remember, it was called tablet, and then what we'll do is type in the password and then make sure that the box for keep me logged in is ticked. And then what you need to do is click the blue login button. So this will then load Home Assistant using fully kiosk browser on your tablet control panel. So this is now loaded into fully kiosk on our Android tablet. So now what we need to do is change some settings in fully kiosk browser. So to do this, to bring up the settings for fully kiosk browser and not Home Assistant, which you'll see here at the left side, we need to swipe in from the left hand side, and you'll see we get the fully kiosk browser menu options. So first what we need to do is go to settings, then select web browser settings, and then what we're going to do is enable pull to refresh option. So click the slider to turn it blue, and then what we'll do is go back with the back arrow, and then we're going to scroll down to the other options and select remote administration. So you'll see here that it's got plus next to it. Now this means that fully kiosk browser is in the plus edition. Now if you want to buy it, you can do, and it costs about €8, which is for a permanent license. So it never expires. It just costs you a one-off fee of about €8, which equates to probably about $10. Now, if you don't, you can still use it, but you will get a watermark on your fully kiosk browser homepage, which I'll show you in a moment when we go back there. So what we need to do next is select remote administration. Then what we're going to do is click the slider for enable remote administration. So this has enabled the plus options in fully kiosk browser. Then what we're going to do is click on remote admin password. And what we're going to do is create a password. Now you can use the same password as the Home Assistant user that we've just created. However, for security, I would recommend that you create a new password. So just create the new password, type it in, and you'll only be able to type it in once. So please remember the password carefully, what you've typed in. And if you want to just confirm what the password is, just click on unhide input. So make a note of this remote admin password because we will need it later on. Then what we're going to do is click OK. And now that we've entered the password, we're going to click the back arrow and then the back arrow once more. And you'll see we get a permissions required pop-up window. So what you need to do is click OK. And then you'll get some permissions options appeared. So what you need to do is for the allow fully kiosk browsers to take pictures and record video, select while using the app, allow fully kiosk browser to access the device location, again while using the app, allow fully kiosk browser to record audio, again while using the app, and then allow fully kiosk browser to find, connect to and determine the relative position of nearby devices. So click allow. Allow fully kiosk browser to send you notifications, select allow. Allow fully kiosk browser to access music and audio on this device, allow. Allow fully kiosk browser to access photos and videos on this device, and then I would select allow all. Then you'll get an option for stop optimizing battery usage. You need to select allow. And then with the activate device admin app, you need to select activate. Then you'll be taken into the alarms and reminders permission. So you'll see here it's enabled. So all you need to do is click back. Then with the appear on top permission, you need to enable fully kiosk browser by clicking the slider and then select back. And then again with usage data access, enable the slider, click back, change system settings. So allow the permission by clicking the slider, click back. And then now we're back at the Home Assistant homepage, and this has now set up all the permissions required. Now what we need to do is find out the IP address for the tablet. So this is being connected via Wi-Fi, so we need to know the IP address for the Android tablet. So to get this, if you scroll up from the bottom of your screen, click the three lines, it will then take you back to your Android tablet desktop. So all you need to do is click close all and then go into settings, scroll down to the bottom and you'll see you get about tablet. So click on about tablet, then select status information and then it will bring up the IP address for your Android tablet. So here you can see mine is 192.168.5.27. So all you need to do is make a note of your IP address that your Android tablet has been allocated. So make a note and then what we'll do is exit out of that, open up fully kiosk browser again. And then what we're going to do is go back to Home Assistant on the web page. So this is the web browser that's on the computer for the user account that we've just added for the tablet. So what we need to do to set up fully kiosk browser in Home Assistant via our web browser here is go to settings, select devices and services, and then in the bottom right corner, select add integration. Then in the search pop-up window, we'll type in fully and you'll see that fully kiosk browser appears. So select fully kiosk browser and then in the host line, what we're going to do is type in the IP address that we've just obtained for our Android tablet, which if you recall in my case was 192.168.5.27. Now yours of course is likely be different IP address, so just type in the IP address of your tablet. Then click in the password box and what we're going to do is type in the password that we created in fully kiosk browser. So this is not the password for the user in Home Assistant, it's the password that we created in the fully kiosk browser when we open the administrator settings and remote access settings in fully kiosk browser on the tablet. So just type in the password and then once you've got the password and host IP address, click submit. And you should then get a name and a sign box window popped up. Now if this doesn't appear, then it means you've either typed in the IP address wrong or the password incorrectly. So once you get the name and a sign box, click skip and finish. and it will then take you into all the statistics and settings for Fully Kiosk browser running on your Android tablet. So here you'll see we get the controls, so you can actually remotely control your Android tablet. You've got sensors, notifications, configuration options which you can change, and then diagnostic information. So here it tells you the battery percentage, battery temperature, memory, storage space, and so on. So that's completed adding Fully Kiosk browser and linking it to Home Assistant on our Home Assistant server. So now that we've done that, what we can do is create an automation which automatically charges up your Android tablet when the battery drops below a certain level. So a certain percentage, for example, here you'll see the battery is 86%. So we could set it to automatically charge the battery in our tablet when it drops to say below 20%, and then stop charging when it reaches say 80 or 90%, for example. So to do that, we need to already have added a smart plug into our Home Assistant. So as I said in the intro, if you want to know how to set up Zigbee smart plugs, then please refer to part 5 or part 6 of this video series, where I showed you how to install Zigbee on Home Assistant. So I've already done that step, so I've already got a smart plug adopted into my Zigbee network, and it's plugged into the wall socket. And also the Android tablet is also plugged into the smart plug via a USB cable and also a USB charger. So to create the automation, what we'll do is click Settings in the bottom left corner. Then what we're going to select is Automations and Scenes. Then in the bottom right corner, we're going to click Create Automation. And then with the pop-up window, Create New Automation. Then in the new automation window, under the When section, we're going to select Add Trigger. Then we're going to select Device from the pop-up Add Trigger window. And then with the triggers in the same pop-up window, with Device and then plus against it, we're going to click Plus. And then with the second pop-up window for Device and Trigger, we're going to select a device by clicking in the line. And we're going to select F with the Galaxy Tab A11 Plus. So this is the Android tablet that we've installed Fully Kiosk browser on. So we're going to select that. So make sure it's the right tablet and it's got the blue F next to it, which it means it's running on Fully Kiosk browser. Then in the trigger option, we're going to click in that box and we're going to scroll towards the top, and we should see battery level changes. So you'll see Galaxy Tab A11 Plus battery level changes, so select it. And then in the below line, we're going to put in 20. So don't type in a percentage, which it won't let you anyway. So just put 20, for example, so that when the battery drops below 20%, it will automatically trigger the smart plug to charge up your Android tablet or Apple tablet, whichever you're using. So then once you've entered below 20 or whichever percentage you want, close that window with the X button. And then what we're going to do is select under Then Do, we're going to click on Add Action. Then what we're going to do is select Device, and then with the actions and the device, so it's saying does something on a device, great way to start, click the plus option. Then in the selected device pop-up second window, we're going to click in that line and we're going to scroll down, and you'll see we've got inner SP242, which is our Zigbee smart plug. So it's got a Z, which is the Zigbee logo against it, and this is the smart plug that we're using. So just select the smart plug that you want to use. Then in the action line, we're going to click in there and we're going to select Turn On Inner SP242. So yours will say something different depending on what your name of your smart plug is. So as long as you select Turn On, it should then automatically turn on the smart plug. So once you've entered the action, you then click the X, and then in the bottom right corner, select Save, and then with the Save pop-up window, we'll give this a name. So for example, Turn On Smart Plug 20%. And then once you've given it a name, which you can type in anything you want, just make sure that you know what the automation is being called, and then click Save. So that's created our first automation so that it starts charging when it drops below 20% battery level. So now that we've done that, we'll click the back arrow at the top here. And then what we'll do is again click Create Automation, Create New Automation, and then in the When section, select Add Trigger. Again, select Device, and then with the triggers and the device, select the plus, and then in the device pop-up window at the right hand side, click in the device line and select again your Galaxy tab or whichever tablet you're using, as long as it's got the blue F against it. Then in the trigger line, we'll select that, and then we'll go to the top and select battery level changes, and then in the above line we'll say 80. So this will then stop charging the tablet when the battery goes above 80%. So once you've entered 80 or whichever number you prefer, click the X button, and then in the Then Do line we're going to select Add Action. Again, select Device, and then with the Actions Device and then Device, and then Does Something on a device, great way to start, click the blue plus. Then in the additional pop-up window for Device, we'll select the device, scroll down and again select the same smart plug, and then in the action you'll see that we've got Turn Off in a SP242. So just make sure that it says turn off and then the name of your smart plug, and then click X. Then what we're going to do is click Save, and then again give the automation a name. So this will be Stop Charging Above 80%, and click Save, and then click the back arrow at the top. So you'll now see that we've got two automations, one for stop charging above 80% and the other for turn on smart plug 20%. Now just one thing to note, you'll see here that the battery level is currently 88%. Now if you want the automation to work for the first time, so this is the first time after you've created the automation, then what you will need to do is go into Home Assistant on the web browser. So if you want it to stop charging straight away or start charging straight away for the first time, you'll need to click the three dots next to the automation and then select the Run Actions. So this is only the first time that after you've created the automation, and that after you've plugged in the tablet into the smart plug using the USB power cable, then you'll need to select Run Action straight away. So once you've done that, it will then every other time it will just run the automation automatically. So hopefully that makes sense. So that's now created the automation to automatically charge up the Android tablet battery once it falls below 20%, and it will stop charging when it gets above 80%. Now one final thing you can actually do is set the Android tablet so that when you walk up to the screen, it will automatically turn the screen on. And then after a certain time period, when you walk away from the screen, it will automatically dim the screen, which will then save the screen from burning and also save a bit of power on your Android tablet. So if you want to know how to do that, all you need to do is scroll down in the Galaxy tab screen here or Android tablet screen, and under the configuration section, you will see we've got an option there for motion detection. So what you need to do is just click the slider to enable motion detection, and then once you step up to the tablet, the camera in the tablet will then detect motion and turn the Home Assistant screen on for you automatically. Now if you want to set a timer for how long the screen stays on and goes off for, then you'll see there's an option here for screen off time. So all you need to do is just use the arrow up and down to set a duration of how long the screen should stay on for before it dims itself. Once you walk away from the screen, it will then stay on for say 10 seconds before it dims itself. So that completes our Part 9 Home Assistant series for 2026. Hope you're liking this video series, hope you found this video useful, and keep a lookout as more videos come in again soon. Take care and bye for now.